There are a number of reasons why exporting is good for a specific company, but some companies feel like exporting is just not relevant to them, and that's just not correct. It turns out that exporting is relevant to every company that's out there. In fact, it's relevant to every resident in the region. And that's because when an exporter brings in a new dollar, 65% of that stays in the local economy and then circulates. And there are really two ways to increase wealth in a region. One is to bring in new money, and the other is to raise the velocity of money. And clearly, exporting brings in new money. What's less obvious is that exporting also increases the velocity of money, because the more money that you have coming into the economy, the more opportunity there is to spend. And when that happens, the spending velocity increases. But in addition, there are other values to a company of going global. The first is that many companies recognize that their competitive advantage is dependent upon innovation. And this study was done in Europe, where they actually track and register product innovations. And they compared like companies in terms of size and industry to one another over a period of years. And they found that within 2 years of becoming an exporter, companies are starting to register 4 times as many product innovations and 7 times as many patents, which clearly indicates that companies that become exporters become more innovative. And part of the reason for that is they're exposed to new ways of solving problems. They're exposed to ways their products are being used by customers in different ways. And it's just a much more information-rich environment when you go international. Many companies look at some point in the future, having a transaction, perhaps selling the company, in which a valuation will take place. And in this example, we have 2 companies, same industry, same revenue profile. For the domestic company, the one in yellow, they have $1 million in EBITDA. For the exporter, because the exporter typically, when they start exporting, they're looking at market opportunities where they can charge more, where they can take less risk, and typically they're leveraging their existing capacity, and so their EBITDA goes up to 1.2 million in our example. Domestically, the valuation multiple is 4 times for this industry. When you go global or go international, you're now spreading your market risk across multiple markets. That actually lowers your market risk. And so your multiple goes up. So from a 4 multiple, you go to a 5 multiple. When you times that times EBITDA, you've now increased the value of the company by 50%, not an insignificant amount. The other thing that exporting does is it tends to make U.S. companies more resilient. And so in the last recession, which was a deep recession, 2005 to 2009 from a growth perspective, companies who didn't export shrunk by 7%. And these are the companies that actually survived that deep recession. Exporters on average grew by 37% over that 5-year period. And that's because they could focus their energies on marketplaces that were impacted by the recession less severely. Revenue per employee tends to go up. You're leveraging your existing workforce and your existing capacity. And the federal government reports that non-exporters who average $163,000 revenue per employee, exporters average $281,000 per employee. And then lastly, because you're in a higher growth environment, there's a lot more opportunity because 89% of spending globally is done outside the United States. Even though the U.S. is an important economy, you're missing out on 89% of the revenue that's available. And so exporters tend to grow faster. As a result, their annual average revenue is higher. And so good reasons to become an exporter.